Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju ki jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupar Rashatar Shatashmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosai Maharaj ki jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupar Rashatar Shatashmar Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosai Maharaj ki jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupar Rashatar Shatashmar Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupar Rashatar Shatashmar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosai Maharaj ki jai. Nityal Pravishtam Vishnupar Rashatar Shatashmar Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosai Prabhupada ki jai. Nityal Pravishta Mahabhagavat Śrīla Gorksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nityal Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura ki jai. Nityal Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupa Gauḍīya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopala Padadas Raghunath Shara Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanantari Shri Gaur Parshada Vrinda ki jai. Namachay Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gora Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sarva Abhishta Bhradata Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund ki jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi ki jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai. Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya ki jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Oh, and today is a special day. I think it's is it Bhakti Gobasta Nemi Maharaj? I think something like that. Let me check calendar. Jai Srila Bhakti Vilas Gobasta Nemi Maharaj ki jai. Tatiya Shubha Tirubhav Titi ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura Sārārtha-darśinī Prati ki jai. Srila Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda Bhāṣya ki Gauḍīya Bhāṣya ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Om Jnanatimmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarabhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yang Pravrajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Virahaka Tara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bhinedus Tang Sarva Bhuta Hridayang Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskrityam Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Shrinvatang Swakatha Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Ridantasto Yavadrani Vidhunoti Suritsatam Nashta Prayeshvavadreshu Nityang Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Tavai Vasmi Na Jivami Tvaya Vina Ete Vegyaya Radhe Tvam Nayamam Charanantike Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshaya Ksheptashtakama Titaranga Madhye Kripa Mai Tvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde namaste charanaravindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Ganga Mataji and Rohit Radha Krishna ji, and everybody else who's watching, Indira Mataji and Raseshwari Mataji who will be watching later. Dandavat pranams to everybody. Okay, so let's see, what did we read yesterday? Okay, so in the two previous chapters, so wait, what chapter are we on now? We are on chapter 11. Okay, so in chapter 9, Uddhava asked the Lord about mystic perfections. Uddhava wanted to know this process, not to practice it, but only to increase his appreciation for bhakti through comparison. Krishna explained, the process of Ashtanga Yoga constitutes of 8 types of practice by which one attains mystic perfections, siddhis. There are 18 types of siddhis, like anima, becoming smaller than the smallest, mahima, becoming bigger than the biggest, and so on. All the siddhis are ultimately futile and are impediments and a waste of time for one who practices the supreme yoga of bhakti. Krishna then described all his material and spiritual opulences, all his vibhutis, and concluded, all power, beauty, fame, humility, charity, fortune, valor, tolerance, and wisdom, wherever they are manifest, are simply expansions of me. All right, so now Uddhava's going to ask, how can one achieve devotional service through the prescribed duties in Varṇāśrama, in the Varṇāśrama system? Sorry. Okay, so that's what we're reading today. Haribo, Madhavidili, Dandavat pranams. All right, where am I going here? Lord Krishna's description of the Varṇāśrama system. Chapter summary by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda. Previously, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna had assumed the form of Hamsa and explains to Lord Brahma and other sages the duties of the brahmachari and grihastha orders. In this chapter, the Lord further describes these matters to Uddhava. After Uddhava inquires from Krishna about the principles of the Varna and Ashram orders of society, the Lord replies that in the first age, Satya Yuga, there was only one Varna, called Hamsa. In that age, people were automatically dedicated to unalloyed devotional service right from their very birth. Since everyone was perfect in all respects, the age was called Krita Yuga. In that age, the Vedas were manifest in the form of the sacred syllable Om. The Supreme Lord was the object of everyone's meditation, and all the limbs of religion were fully manifested. There were no formal performances of Vedic sacrifices. People were naturally pious and inclined to perform austerities, and they simply engaged in meditation on the personal form of the Supreme Lord. In the following age, Treta Yuga, the 3 Vedas became manifest from the heart of the Supreme Lord, and from them, the 3 forms of sacrificial fire. At that time, the system of the 4 Varnas and 4 Ashrams, which prescribes material and spiritual duties for the different members of society, manifested from the limbs of the Supreme Lord. According to how these divisions appeared from the higher and lower bodily limbs of the Supreme Lord, they were endowed with higher and lower qualities. After this description, the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna explains the nature of those in each of the 4 Varnas, as well as those who are outside the limits of the 4 Varnas. The Lord also describes those qualities that pertains to humanity in general. Members of the higher social orders are qualified to take second birth. After receiving the sacred thread initiation, they should go to live in the Gurukul, the home of the spiritual master, as brahmacharis. There, the student should practice self-control and absorb himself in the study of the Vedas. He should keep matted hair and is forbidden to wash his teeth, prepare a nice seat for himself, talk while bathing or evacuating, cut his hair and nails, or at any time pass semen. He can't wash his teeth? Sorry. Okay. He must regularly perform worship at the 3 junctures of the day and must render devotional service to his spiritual master in a spirit free from envy. A brahmachari must offer to the guru whatever food and other things he collects by begging. He gladly accepts for his maintenance whatever remnants of the Lord he is granted. He should render menial service to the spiritual master by massaging his feet and worship him, and he should avoid all sense gratification and strictly maintain the vow of celibacy. He should surrender himself completely to the Supreme Lord and engage in worshipping him in the form of Paramatma according to the rules and regulations prescribed for him. For brahmacharis, seeing or touching women and conversations or sports in the company of women are absolutely disallowed. Maintaining cleanliness and performing achman for purification are recommended for members of all the ashrams. Everyone is advised to remember that the Supreme Lord is the Supersoul residing within all living entities. I think this "the" is not supposed to be there. So say they are to remember the Supreme Lord as the Supersoul residing. Oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. After studying all the different aspects of the Vedas, a Brahman who has material desires may, with the permission of his spiritual master, enter householder life. Otherwise, if he has no material desires, he may enter the Vanaprastha or Sannyasa ashram. Interesting. You could go directly from brahmachari to Vanaprastha. The proper order of succession should be followed in changing. The proper order of succession should be followed in changing from one spiritual order to the next. One who desires to enter household life should accept a wife who is of the same varna as himself, who is not condemnable, and who is younger than he is. Interesting. The obligatory duties of the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas are worship of the Supreme Lord, study of the Vedas, and giving charity. Only Brahmanas have the privilege of accepting charity, teaching the Vedic scriptures to others, and conducting sacrifices. If a Brahmana finds some fault in these 3 occupations, he may maintain himself by collecting grains from the agricultural fields. If a Brahmana is extremely poverty-stricken and thus in dire need of money, he may accept the profession of Kshatriyas or Vaishya, but he should never accept the occupation of a Shudra. In a similar situation, a Kshatriya may accept the occupation of a Vaishya, and a Vaishya that of a Shudra. When such an emergency has passed so that there is no more imminent danger, one should not continue to earn his livelihood by means of a lower occupation. A Brahmana who remains fixed in performing his occupational duties while giving up insignificant material desires always remains under the protection of the Supreme Lord. The householder should study the Vedas daily and maintain his family members with the wealth he has honestly earned by engaging in his occupation, and he should worship the Supreme Lord according to his capacity. Remaining unattached to family life and fixed in devotion to the Supreme Lord, a householder may finally accept the Vanaprastha ashram, or if he has a grown-up son, he may directly take sannyas in order to completely devote his time to the worship of the Supreme Lord. But persons who are extremely lusty after women, who have no power of discrimination, and who are mad after earning wealth and amassing possessions, remain in constant anxiety over the well-being of their family members and are doomed to take their next birth in a lower species of life. Dandavat pranams Madhavi Didi, Sudevi Didi, Pradyumna Prabhu, and Mantra Murti Mataji. Hare Krishna, everybody. Oh yeah, I'm going to... Oh, the light is on. Okay, good. I'm standing up right now because I didn't sleep much last night. So... Okay. Shri Uddhava Uvacha Yastvaya Bihita Purvam Dharmastvar Bhakti Lakshana Varṇāśrama Charavatam Sarvesham Dvipadam Api Yatanushti Yamanena Tvai Bhaktir Nirnam Bhavet Swadharmenaravindaksha Tanmama Kyatumarhasi. Shri Uddhav said, "My dear Lord, you have described the principles of devotional service that are performed by the followers of the Varṇāśrama system, as well as those who live unregulated lives. O lotus-eyed Lord, kindly tell how people can attain your loving service by the execution of their prescribed duties." Sārārtha-darśinī commentary by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. After hearing from Krishna about the processes of Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Ashtanga Yoga, Uddhav now inquires about the practice of Karma Yoga as a means of attaining perfection. The Supreme Lord had previously said, "Kalena nashta pralaye vaniyam vedasam gita maya do brahmane prokta dharmo yasyam maratmaka." He said, "By the influence of time, the transcendental Vedic knowledge was lost at the time of annihilation. Then, when the subsequent creation took place, I imparted the Vedic knowledge to Brahma, because I myself am the principles of religion enunciated therein." That's Srimad Bhagavatam 11.14.3. Religious principles are delineated in the Vedic literature. Devotional service, which is the perfection of religion, is divided into three categories: Kevala Bhakti, Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti, and Guni Bhuta Bhakti. Of the three, Kevala Bhakti can be executed by members of all the ashrams. Indeed, even those who are outside the purview of the Varṇāśrama society can engage in unmotivated devotional service if they faithfully associate with saintly devotees. There is no other way for attaining perfection other than to attain the association of pure devotees. The Lord has confirmed this. Yam na yogena sankhena dana vrata tapodvarai vyakya swadhyaya sanyasai prapnuyar yatnavan api. Even though one engages with great endeavor in the mystic yoga system, philosophical speculation, giving charity, executing vows and penances, performing ritualistic sacrifices, teaching the Vedic mantras to others, a personal study of the Vedas, or the renounced order of life, still one cannot achieve me. That's Srimad Bhagavatam 11.12.9. If one associates with saintly devotees, then he can attain pure devotional service, whether he follows the principles of Varṇāśrama or not. Dharman santyajaya sarvan mam bhajeta satu... Sorry. Oh wait, this is a... Oh yeah, okay. Dharman santyajaya sarvam mam bhajeta satu sattamaha. One who gives up all ordinary religious principles to worship me alone is the foremost among human beings. Oh, that's verse 32 in this chapter, which we'll read. Actually, we end with that verse, I think, right? Oh, yeah. Nearly ends with that verse. So we'll come to that verse later on. Pradhani Bhuta Bhakti and Guni Bhuta Bhakti are also awakened by the association of devotees and from the execution of one's occupational duties. The Supreme Lord alone knows how one can receive the seed of the creeper of devotional service unto him. The word bhakti in this verse refers to pradhani bhuta bhakti and guni bhuta bhakti. It does it explain anywhere what these three are? Anyways. Purakila mahabaho dharmam paramakam prabho yat tena hangsarupena brahmane bhyatamadava sa idanim sumahata kalinat mitra karshana na prayo bhavita martya loke prag anushasita vakta karta vitananyo dharmasyachyutate bhuvi sabhayam api vairincham yatra murti dhara kala kartra vitra pravaktra cha bhavata madhusudana tyakte mahitale deva vinashtam ka pravakshati tattvam na sarvadharmagya dharmatvar bhakti lakshana yata yasya vidhiyeta tata varnaya me prabho. O mighty armed one, my dear Lord, previously as Lord Hangsa, you spoke to Lord Brahma about the religious principles that bring supreme happiness. You spoke to Lord Brahma about the religious principles that bring supreme happiness to the follower. My dear Madhav, much time has now passed, so that what you had previously instructed will soon be forgotten. O subduer of the enemy, O Lord Achyuta, you are the sole protector of religious principles. My dear Lord Madhusudan, you are the actual propounder of religious principles. When you return to your own abode, who will continue to propagate the true understanding of religious principles? My dear Lord, as the perfect knower of religious principles, please describe to me the path of devotional service, and tell me the qualifications of one who is to traverse this path. Sārārtha-darśinī. There are 18 divisions of knowledge, as described in the Vedic literature. The 4 Vedas, Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva, the Puranas, the Nyaya Shastra, Mimamsa, Dharma Shastra, Kalpa, Vyakarana, Nirukta, Jyotisha, Chanda, Ayurveda, Dhanurveda, Gandharva Veda, and Artha Shastra. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya commentary by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta. In the beginning of creation, the first created being, Brahma, received knowledge of the supreme religious principles from Lord Hangsa. From him, Brahma and the Brahmanas attained an understanding of the Ekayan process of spiritual practice. In the course of time, however, misguided transcendentalists began to practice the supreme religious principles, which are based on the devotional service of the Lord, in a perverted manner. When a pure spirit soul becomes materially contaminated, he gives up the supreme religious principle of devotional service to the Lord and becomes inclined to perform fruitive activities, engage in the cultivation of knowledge, or endeavor for perfection in mystic yoga. These activities are illusory because they are based on the material conception of life and have nothing to do. They are based on the material conception of life and have nothing to do with the constitutional position of the living entity. Sanatan Dharma refers to devotional service alone. Shri Shuka Uvacha Itang Sabhrita Mukhena Prishta Sa Bhagavan Hari Pritakshemaya Martyanam Dharmam Aha Sanatanam. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, Sri Uddhava, the foremost of devotees, thus inquired from the Lord. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, was pleased to hear the words of his devotee, and for the benefit of everyone, he described eternal religious principles. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Dharmya Esha Tava Prashno Naishreyasya Karo Nrinam Varṇāśrama Charavatam Tam Uddhava Nibodhame. The Supreme Lord said, let me just check everything's running okay. Rohit Radhakrishnaji, no. The Bhagavat Subodhini series only goes up to the 9th canto. They're now working on the 10th canto. That will probably take a really long time, though. They'll probably do it in parts. But yeah, no, only up to the 9th canto, unfortunately. The Supreme Lord said, "My dear Uddhava, your question is glorious, because it is in accordance with religious principles and thus leads the followers of Varṇāśrama to life's ultimate goal, pure devotional service. Now listen attentively as I talk about eternal religious principles." Sārārtha-darśinī. The word dharma refers to the supreme religious principles. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The religious principles prescribed for ordinary men are far different from eternal religious principles prescribed for the devotees of the Lord. The principles for ordinary men are different from the eternal religious principles prescribed for the devotees of the Lord. Ordinary persons are materialistic, and so their religious principles are simply meant to gradually elevate them to the mode of goodness. Discussion of eternal religious principles are the most auspicious topics for civilized human beings. The Varṇāśrama system is a social order based upon religious principles that gradually leads one up to the point of Krishna consciousness. Ado krita yuge varno nrinam hangsa iti smrita krita kritya prajajatya tasmat kritya yugam vidu. In the beginning, in Satya Yuga, there was only one social class, known as Hangsa, to which all human beings belonged. In that age, human beings engaged in unalloyed devotional service right from their birth, and thus learned scholars call this first age Krita Yuga. Sārārtha-darśinī. Sri Krishna is instructing Uddhava about Varṇāśrama Dharma, beginning from its inception. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The period of time when human beings were not polluted by the three modes of material nature is called Krita Yuga or Satya Yuga. Ekayan Padati refers to the period of time when the Varnas were not divided. That undivided Varna was known as Hangsa. The Supersoul is referred to as Hangsa, and the devotees are those who are maintained by the Hangsa. Veda pranava evagre dharmoham vrisharupadrik upasate taponishta hangsa mam muktakil bisha. In Satya Yuga, the undivided Veda is expressed by the syllable Om, and I am manifested as the four-legged bull of religion. The pious inhabitants of that age are fixed in austerity, and with their mind and senses fully under the control, they meditate on my transcendental form as Hangsa. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The four legs of the bull represents the four parts of the Lord's opulence as manifested in this world. The condensed form of the Lord's holy name in the form of Om is the origin of the Vedas. Treta mukhe mahabhaga pranan me hridayatraye vidya pradura bhutasya aham asam trivrinmaka. O greatly fortunate one! At the beginning of Treta Yuga, Vedic knowledge was manifested from my heart, which is the shelter of the life air. The Vedas appeared in three divisions: the Rig, Sama, and Yajur. From the three Vedas, I manifested three kinds of sacrifice. Sārārtha-darśinī. The Supreme Lord said, "From the heart of my universal form appeared the three Vedas, and from them appeared the three kinds of sacrifice, known as Hotra, Advaryava, and Odgatra. It is described in the scriptures that Lord Vishnu appeared in his form as Yajna." Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. When one leg of religion was lost, the three Vedas, Rag, Sama, and Yajur came into being. The three performers of Vedic sacrifices, known as Hota, Udgata, and Advaryu, also appeared. Vipakshatriya Vitshudra Mukhabahurupadaja Vairajat Purushajjata Ya Atma Charalakshanam. In Treta Yuga, the four Varnas, the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras, along with their occupational duties and characteristics, appeared from the mouth, arms, thighs, and legs of the universal form of the Lord, respectively. Sārārtha-darśinī. In the beginning of creation, the natural propensities of the spirit souls were manifest, but gradually, in the course of time, their qualities and nature became contaminated. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The four social orders of human society came into existence from four parts of the Lord's universal form: his mouth, arm, legs, thighs, and legs. In this way, human beings were divided into four classes, according to their qualities and propensities for work. Grihāśramo Jagannatho Brahmacharyam Hrido Mama Vakshastalad Vane Vasaha Sannyasa Shirasi Stita. The married order of life, the Grihastha ashram, appeared from the loins of my universal form, and the celibate students, the Brahmacharya ashram, appeared from my heart. The forest dwelling retired order of life, the Vanaprastha ashram, appeared from my chest, and the renounced order of life, the Sannyasa ashram, appeared from my head. Sārārtha-darśinī. The heart is considered to be below the chest. Varnānam ashramanam cha janma bhumyanusarini asam prakritayo nrinam nichar nichotamottama. The four Varnas and four ashrams were then manifested according to the higher and lower natures of the conditioned souls. Sārārtha-darśinī. Haribol Champakdidi, Radhe Radhe. Sārārtha-darśinī. The Brahmanas and Sannyasis are situated on the head of the universal form of the Lord, and are thus considered to be the most important members of the social body. The Shudras and Grihastas are situated on the legs and abdomen of the universal form of the Lord, and so they are considered to be inferior in status. Everyone is born with a particular intelligence and social position, and in consideration of these, one is placed within the Varnāśrama system. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The Brahmana Varna and the Sannyasa ashram are situated in the highest position of the Lord's universal form, and thus they are in the topmost positions of society. Because Kshatriyas and Vanaprasthas are situated on the Lord's arms and chest, they are also considered to be in superior positions. The Vaishyavarna and Brahmacharya ashram are situated on lower limbs of the universal form, and so they are accepted as inferior statuses. The Shudras and Grihastas are accepted as having even lower status. This is the situation of the social and spiritual orders within the Varnāśrama system. Oh, I think I've seen this verse before. Shamo damastapa shocham santoshak shantirarjavam mad bhaktischa daya satyam brahma prakritayastvimaha. Peacefulness, control of the senses, austerity, cleanliness, satisfaction, forgiveness, simplicity, devotion to me, compassion, and truthfulness are the natural qualities of Brahmanas. Sārārtha-darśinī. The phrase Mad Bhakti refers to Guni Bhuta Bhakti. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. One cannot find much lust or anger in the nature of a Brahmana. For this reason, a Brahmana does not indulge in unrestricted sense gratification, but instead takes pleasure in discussing devotional literature. Purity, steadiness due to an absence of dissatisfaction, tolerance, simplicity, inclination toward the Lord's service, compassion for all living entities, and truthfulness, these 8 characteristics are to be found in Brahmanas. Tejo balam driti shoryam titiksho daryam udyama staryam brahmanyam aishvaryam kshatra prakritayastvimam. Prowess, bodily strength, patience, heroism, tolerance, magnanimity, enthusiasm, steadiness, devotion to the Brahmanas, and leadership are the natural qualities of the Kshatriyas. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Haribo Mitra Vrinda Didi. Dhanavad pranams. So, Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Kshatriyas naturally possess great prowess, patience, heroism, tolerance, magnanimity, enthusiasm, steadiness, devotion, and leadership. Astikyam dhananishchacha adambho brahma sevanam atushtir arthopachayar vaishya prakritayastvima. Faith in Vedic literature, an inclination to give charity, freedom from pride, service to the Brahmanas, and a perpetual desire to accumulate more and more money are the natural qualities of the Vaishyas. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. True Vaishyas are not merely businessmen. They have faith in the eternity of the soul. They take pleasure in giving charity, and they are free from false pride. They serve those who are well versed in the Vedic literature and have a continuous thirst for accumulating wealth. Shushushanam dijagavam devanam chapyamayaya tatra labdena santosha shudra prakritayastvima. Service without duplicity to the Brahmanas, cows, demigods, and other worshipable personalities, and satisfaction with whatever is obtained by such service are the natural qualities of Shudras. Whenever there's a description of the Shudras like this, they always seem like the ones closest to devotees. Sārārtha-darśinī. Sorry. In Vedic society, Shudras are satisfied by whatever they receive as remuneration for services rendered, because the higher classes of men are trained to be charitable toward those who are less fortunate, and thus they never lack the necessities of life. Ashocham anritam steyam nastikyam shushka vigraha kama krodascha tarshascha sabhavontya-vasayinam. Lack of cleanliness, dishonesty, thievery, very little faith in God, unnecessary quarrel, lust, anger, and great hankering are the nature of the lowest among men, who are outside of the Varṇāśrama system. Sārārtha-darśinī. This verse describes the qualities of those who live outside the Varṇāśrama system. Such persons are referred to as antyaja. Ahimsa satamasteyam akama krodalobhata bhuta priya hite hacha dharma yam sarvavarnika. Nonviolence, truthfulness, honesty, desire for the happiness and welfare of all others, and freedom from lust, anger, and greed constitute the duties for all members of society. Sārārtha-darśinī. The phrase Sarvavarnika refers not only to those acting within the Varṇāśrama system, but to those outside of it as well. Every human being can practice nonviolence, restraint from stealing, the giving up of lust, anger, and greed, and a charitable disposition toward others. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The qualities of nonviolence, truthfulness, honesty, restraint of lust, anger, and greed, and looking after the welfare of others are held in esteem in all human societies. Dvitiyam prapyanupurvyaj janmopanayanam dvija vasan guru kule danto brahmadhiyitachahuta. The twice-born member of the Varṇāśrama society should undergo the purificatory rituals, beginning with the Garbhodhan and culminating in the sacred thread initiation ceremony. He should then reside in the ashram of the spiritual master while practicing self-control and studying the Vedic literature. Sārārtha-darśinī. The Lord describes the qualities of the members of the 4 ashrams in the following 9 verses. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas are known as Dvija, or twice-born. They observe the system of samskars, or purificatory rites, beginning with the Garbhodhan samskar, and later on they receive the Gayatri mantra, which signifies their second birth through spiritual initiation. Thereafter, when they are called by the Acharya, they go to live in the Gurukul, where they practice self-control and study the Vedas. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The term Dvija, or twice-born here, indicates the 3 superior classes, namely Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. The lowest class of men, the Shudras, as well as those who are outside the Varṇāśrama society, do not observe the purificatory rites that are performed by the higher 3 classes. Because of this, their condition is full of ignorance, and so they should be carefully guided so as to not become disrespectful of the higher classes of men. Those who observe the purificatory processes should give up whimsical arguments and instead become submissive to the elevated devotees of the Lord. Mekala Jinadandaksha Brahma Sutra Kamandalun Jatilo Dhota Darvaso Rakta Pita Kushandadat. This sounds interesting. A brahmachari should have matted hair, and he should wear a belt of kusha grass and deerskin garments. He should carry a staff and a water pot, and he should be decorated with aksha beads and a sacred thread. He should be inclined to austerity and thus never accept an opulent sitting place. He should not take very good care of his teeth, nor should he be concerned about his clothes. Snana bhojana homeshu japochare chavagyata na chindyan nakaromani kakshopasta gatanyapi. A brahmachari should remain silent while bathing, eating, performing fire sacrifices, chanting mantras, and passing stool and urine. He should not cut his nails and hair, including the armpit and pubic hair. Sārārtha-darśinī. A brahmachari should always be seen with a waistband, deerskin, kusha grass, beads, and a sacred thread. He should not be concerned about the whiteness of his teeth or the condition of his clothes. He should neither wear red cloth nor sit on a red asan. He should remain silent while chanting mantras and while passing stool or urine. Thank God I'm not wearing my red shirt today that I was wearing yesterday. Reto nava kirej jatu brahma vrata darasvayam avakirne vaghaya yapsu yata sustri padam japet. While observing the vow of celibate brahmachari life, one should never pass semen. If he passes semen involuntarily, the brahmachari should immediately bathe, control his breath by the practice of pranayam, and chant the Gayatri mantra. Agnyarkar go. Sorry. Agnyarkar. God, that's difficult to say. Agnyarkacharya go vipra guru vriddha suranshuchi samahita upasita sandhe dve yatavag japan. With a purified mind and fixed attention, the brahmachari should worship the fire god, the sun, the acharya, the cows, brahmanas, guru, elderly respectable persons, and demigods at sunrise and at sunset, remaining silent while quietly chanting the appropriate mantras. Sārārtha-darśinī. The brahmachari should remain silent while performing his morning and evening worship, but such silence is not required when he performs his noontime rituals. Oh, this is a very famous verse. Everyone should learn this verse if you don't already know it. This is an essential Guru Tattva shloka. Acharya mam vijaniyan navamanyeta karhichit namartya buddhyasu yeta sarvadeva mayo guru. Very important verse. One should know the acharya as myself and never disrespect him in any way. One should not envy him, thinking him an ordinary man, for he is the representative of all the demigods. I think Siddhanta Maharaj just made a book called Sarvadeva Mayo Guru, right? Didn't he? I think so. Yeah, here it is. Look at this book. One second, I'm just showing you this. See, look, there's a book, Sarvadeva Mayo Guru. So it's based on this verse, his glorification of my Gurudev and Śrīla Bharati Maharaj. Hari Bol Yashoda Didi. So, very important verse. Sārārtha-darśinī. The Supreme Lord said, you should know the spiritual master as my most dear servant. For this reason it has been stated, Guru Varam Mukunda Prishtatvena Smaret. Remember the spiritual master as the most beloved devotee of Lord Mukunda. One should never disregard the spiritual master by considering him to be an ordinary human being. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. When the Supreme Lord takes the position of an instructor, desiring to award eternal benefits to the living entities, he becomes known as an acharya. If one neglects the acharya, or if a disciple considers himself as equal to his spiritual master, and thus displays envy and audacity towards him, then there is no possibility for him to become successful in his vows. This is due to a lack of faith in the spiritual master. Therefore, one who seriously aspires to attain the ultimate goal of life should properly worship the spiritual master, considering him as the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead. Instead of considering the Acharya as the object of one's service, one should consider him a staunch servant of Lord Vishnu. That's an interesting point. Instead of considering the Acharya as the object of one's service, one should consider him a staunch servant of Lord Vishnu. I don't fully understand that, but my guess is that, the ultimate object of our service is Krishna, right? As Lord Vishnu. And so we serve Shri Guru, but ultimately because Shri Guru is serving Krishna, but we don't serve Guru as the end. Like we don't serve it. I'm not sure if that's what's being said here, but I'm just guessing. Otherwise, I don't really understand it. Like we serve the servant of the Lord, but ultimately the Lord is the ultimate object of the service. Tell me if I don't know. That's the only way I can make sense of that. Sayam pratar upaniya bhaiksham tasmai nivedayet yachchanyar apyanugyatam upayunjita samyata. Every morning and evening, the brahmachari should bring whatever food and other things he has received by begging door to door and offer them to his spiritual master. Thereafter, with a controlled mind, he should accept whatever is allotted to him by his spiritual master. Sārārtha-darśinī. Whatever a brahmachari collects by begging or receives in charity should be offered to the spiritual master. He should only eat or utilize any object after being permitted by the spiritual master. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The purpose of human life is to revive one's forgotten relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This mission is accomplished under the direction of the bona fide spiritual master. From childhood, a boy is trained to become very submissive to his spiritual master and very austere in his lifestyle. Whatever a student has collected, he must offer to the spiritual master and then only accept what is allotted to him by his guru. One who hopes to advance in spiritual life should not want to acquire things for his personal enjoyment. Such training is imparted by the spiritual master to his disciple, and when he sees that his student has advanced, he engages him directly in the service of the Supreme Lord. Shushrumana acharyam sadhupasita nichavat yana shayasana stanair nati dure kritanjali. Yes, Yashoda Didi, very good example. One should engage as the humble servant of the Acharya. When the spiritual master goes for a walk, the student should submissively follow him. When the spiritual master rests, the disciple should also rest lying down nearby, always ready to render any required service. When the spiritual master sits down, the disciple should stand nearby with folded hands, ready to execute his order. Wow, such a nice verse. Sārārtha-darśinī. When the spiritual master walks, a disciple should follow him like a menial servant. When the spiritual master sleeps, a disciple should sleep nearby. And when he sits on his asana, a disciple should stand in front of him with folded hands awaiting his order. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The only means for advancing in spiritual life is to always remain faithfully devoted to the spiritual master. In all respects, one's relationship with the spiritual master should be that of a master and servant. In this regard, one should contemplate this verse from the Padma Purana Uttarakanda. Acharitva tu govindam tadiyan na charit tuya nasa bhagavato geya kevalam dambika smrita. One who performs worship of Lord Govinda but fails to worship his devotees should be understood to be not a devotee of the Lord, but simply a victim of false pride. Oh, great verse, heavy one. I like that one though. I'm going to save it. Go to the next page. Why is... Anyways, whatever. Evam vrito gurukule vasir bhoga vivarjita vidya samapyate yavar vibrar vratam akhanditam. Until his education is completed, a brahmachari should remain at the Gurukul, faithfully engaging in the service of the spiritual master while maintaining his vow of celibacy. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. While living at the Gurukul, a brahmachari should observe strict celibacy. He should not be driven by urges for sense gratification, and he should not think of himself as the enjoyer of the fruits of his karma. Only in this way can one master the spiritual knowledge that is imparted to him by the spiritual master. Yadyaso chandasam lokam arukshan brahma vishtapam gurave vinyase deham swadhyayartham brihadvrata. If a brahmachari wishes to transfer himself to Maharlok, and from there to Brahmalok, he should very thoroughly study the Vedas under the direction of the spiritual master while strictly observing the vow of celibacy. Sārārtha-darśinī. After describing the characteristics of a brahmachari who may later on enter the grihastha ashram, the Lord now explains the special characteristics of a strict, lifelong brahmachari in 6 verses. If a brahmachari desires to go to Brahmaloka, he should observe strict lifelong celibacy and fully dedicate himself to his spiritual master while engaging in advanced study of the Vedas. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Anyone who desires to attain perfection in life must engage his body, mind, and words in the service of the spiritual master without any separate interests. Okay, should we just finish this? It's already 8:31 though. Let's just finish this up. It's not so much longer. Agno gurava atmanicha sarva bhuteshu mam param apritagdir upasita brahma varchasvakalmashaha. Being enlightened with Vedic knowledge as a result of service to the spiritual master, and being freed from all sins and the vision of duality, one should worship me as the supersoul as I appear within fire. One should worship me as the supersoul as I appear within the fire, the spiritual master, one's own self, and all living entities. Sārārtha-darśinī. The phrase Brahmavarcha means the enlightenment of one. Brahmavarcha means the enlightenment one attains by carefully studying the Vedic literature. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. If a person actually becomes enlightened as a result of studying the Vedas, he will never again willfully indulge in sinful activities. In the state of self-realization, one does not proudly consider himself to be the enjoyer of the perishable material objects. Rather, he thinks himself to be an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord, and thus he remains engaged in the devotional service of the Lord without deviation. Strinam nirikshana sparsha sanglapa kshvelanadikam pranino mituni bhutan agrihasto kratastyajit. Except householders, members of the other spiritual orders, that's sannyasis, vanaprasthas, and brahmacharis, should never associate with women by glancing, touching, conversing, joking, or playing. Neither should they associate with any living entity who is engaged in sexual activities. And we're ending with this verse. Sārārtha-darśinī. Brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis should never even see birds or insects engaged in sexual intercourse. Okay. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. With a spirit of enjoyment, if the brahmachari sees, touches, intimately converses with, plays with, or jokes with a woman, then his ruination is inevitable. One should not associate with women, talk about women, or even associate or talk about those who are attached to women. This principle is particularly applicable to brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis. If a householder does not control his senses and follow the regulative principles, he is known as grihavrata, or an overly attached householder. That is the danger of household life, where there are many opportunities to engage in unrestricted sense gratification. A sannyasi, brahmachari, or vanaprastha should strictly avoid everything related to sex and should never even gaze at an animal engaged in sexual affairs. All right. So we will continue hearing about the other varnas tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to do Jaidvani. What's that? Yeah, let me know what that is, Rohit Radhakrishna ji. I'm going to say Jaidvani, and then for those who want to stay, I'm going to do Keshavashtakam. I'm going to sing Keshavashtakam, which I've been doing every day. Oh, and I just got a message from Raseshwari Mataji, who has been joining our readings from the very beginning. So she's been joining for like almost 3 years now, every day. But she missed the past couple days because she had a surgery. She said it took 7 hours. But it was all successful. So she's going to sleep tonight very well. And but yeah, glad that it's successful, and she'll be joining us again soon. All right. Jai Shishi Guru Guranga Gandhar Vika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Vihari Juki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Juki Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishimar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishimar Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishimar Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishimar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Nitya Lila Pravishtam Vishnupa Rashata Rashata Shishimar Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Goswami Prabhupāda Ki Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Śrīla Gaurkishora Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura Ki Jai Nitya Lila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Rupa Nugoriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopala Patadasha Raghunath Shrar Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Swarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Ṭhākura Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Sarva Abhishta Bharata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Radha Kund Shama Kund Ki Jai Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai Shri Gopeshwara Mahadev Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Shri Uddhava-gīta Ki Jai Shri Srila Viśvanātha Cakravartī Thakur Sārārtha-darśinī Vritti Ki Jai Shri Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Prabhupāda Gauḍīya Bhāṣya Ki Jai. Oh, and today is the Tirobhav Tithi of Nitya Pravishtam Vishnupad Ashwatarashata Shishimad Srila Bhakti Vilas Gobasta Nemi Maharaj Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashaja Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. And thank you for yesterday and today. You let me go a little bit over time. So grateful you allowed me to do that. Yeah, I'm actually really eager to finish this 11th canto so that we can begin with, we're all ready to begin with Chaitanya Bhagavat. And with the Chaitanya Bhagavat readings, I want to be a bit more prepared. Like with these Srimad Bhagavatam readings, I don't do any preparation at all. Like I just turn it on and I'm reading it for the first time. I don't study it outside our readings here. But with this Chaitanya Bhagavat, I want to prepare it more nicely and get the main points of each chapter and be able to summarize everything nicely and like that. So yeah, and actually I'd like to, if anybody's interested in that, I'd like to have a separate study group also. Like there'll be the daily readings, but then also maybe once a week we can go over and discuss some of the points, some of the things that stood out to you, or memorize some of the most important verses from it, or whatever. Any like a separate weekly discussion group thing. All right, I'm going to sing Keshavashtakam, and then we will complete for today. All right, 1 second. I'm just getting Mridanga. Oh, and Bhakti Vilas Gabasa. If you want to read about Srila Bhakti Vilas Gabasani Maharaj, you can go to vcvani.com, vcvani.com, and Srila Bharati Maharaj has a class there. All right. Normally I would have read it, but I'm trying to get through this Srimad Bhagavatam quickly, so that's why I'm going to read it on my own later. All right, let me share my screen. Hare Krishna Sharmaji. Nava Priya Kamanjari Rachita Karnapura Shriyam Vinedratara Malati Kalita Shekare Nojvalam Tarojvasita Yuthika Kratita Valgovai Kakshaka Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshavam Vishangi Manikastani Pranata Shingi Pinge Kshane Mridanga Mukhi Dhumale Shabali Hangshi Vangshi Piye Iti Sasura Vikulam Taralama Vayanta Muda Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshavam Gana Pranaya Meduran Madhuranarma Goshti Kala Vilasa Nilayan Milar Vivida Vesha Vidyotina Sakena Kila Saraya Patishuhasayantam Gira Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshavam Shamambukanika Vali Daravilida Gandantaram Samudagiri Dhatuvir Likita Charupantram Puram Udancharali Mandale Duti Vidam Bivakralakam Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshavam Nibaddhanavatarnaka Vali Vilokanotkanthaya Nathatkura Putanchalar Alugubhir Bhuvam Bindatim Kalena Davala Ghata Lagu Nirvartayantam Puro Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshavam Padankatati Birvaram Virachayantam advashriyam Chalat tarala naichiki Nichaya dhuli dhumrasrajam Marulla hari chanchali Krita dukula chudanchala Braje vijayinam bhaje Vipina deshata keshavam Vilasa murali kala Tvani birulasan manasa Kshanara kila pallavi Pulakayantamantar grihe Muhur vidatatang hridi Pramuditancha goshteshware Vraje vijayinam bhaje Vipina deshata keshavam Upetya pati sundari Tati birabhyarabhyarchitam Smitangkurakaram pitar Natarapanga bhangi shatai Stanastavaka sancharan Nayana chanchari kanchalam Vraje vijayinam bhaje Vipina deshata keshavam Idam nikila ballavi Kula mahotsavollasanam Kramena kila yapuman Patati shushtupadyashtakam Tam ujvala dhyang sada Nijapadara vendadvaye Pratim dadada chanchalam Sukayatar vishaka saka Praje vijayinam bhaje Vipina deshata keshavam Praje vijayinam bhaje Vipina deshata keshavam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Jaya Keshavadev 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 Jaya Keshavadev Jaya Keshavadev 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 Jaya Keshavadev Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Jai Sachinandan Gaur Hari ki Jai Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju ki Jai Jai Shri Keshav Dev ki Jai Jai Shri Gurudev ki Jai Shri Param Gurudev ki Jai Shri Prabhupāda ki Jai Shri Rupanuga Gauriya Guru Varga ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All right, everybody, I'll see you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe Hari Bol.